people have used me as a tick box, and I refuse to be a tick box. If I can't contribute, then I won't attend.
She's a mother of 6, PhD holder, an O.B.E, a professor in university. She's the CEO of Global One, Dr Husna Ahmad, O.B.E. Do you think being educated does play a part in terms of broad-minded people?
To be honest, what I found is also there are people who are educated who are very narrow-minded.
You sit on the board of mosques as well. How does that kind of work? Because it's quite uncommon in I guess, I haven't seen kind of any, I guess, female leadership in mosques or organizations such as mosques.
And it's quite sad because I think, women are perhaps much more active in the masjid.
No way, that's mashallah. All right, Dr. Husna, thank you very much for joining us today on Side by Side podcast. It's an honor to have you. I've been inspired by your work, your academic outcomes, how you, I guess, juggle between your leadership role in Global One. You say you're a mother of 6. You're also a granny to I guess 6 young children. So, mashallah, you're very active, and you kind of you make it seem very effortless, the way it comes across through your social media and the channels. Before I begin, I just wanted to kind of I guess request you to give a overview or a slight background in terms of where you come from, and I guess to the point where you started Global One, the faith-based charity to, I guess, empower women from underdeveloped countries, if I'm correct in my understanding. So if you can just give us a rough, broad overview of who you are, where you come from, and how you got to where you are today.
Assalamu alaikum. And I just feel very humbled and honored to be on your podcast, because I think, yourself, your family, the entrepreneurship and the vibrancy and leadership that you have shown is just amazing, especially at this young age. So, it's a real honor to be here with you.
Thank you.
With myself, I came to the UK at the age of 4, and I grew up in North London. Then I got married at the age of 16.
Wow,
so
that's early.
Yes, it was quite early, and had my first child at 18 years old. But my family is, in terms of academic background, really, pushed me on that front. So I carried on with my A-levels and then my LLB, LLM, and then did my PhD. And during that time, I was having children. I had my last 2 after, when I was actually working. And it wasn't effortless at all. It's a huge challenge, very difficult, but I think you need a support structure around you. And alhamdulillah, I had my parents, for support. My husband was very supportive. So, having that support structure, and also having people who encourage you and make you feel you can achieve. Because, a lot of the time, you can be surrounded by pessimistic and negative people who will pull you down. So you need to make sure that you surround yourself by people who encourage and, tell you, carry on. I mean, the number of times when I was doing my PhD, I would phone my father and say to him, okay, I'm giving up. I can't do this. And he'd be like, put the kettle on, I'm coming round, and then he'd just gently encourage me and say, look, you've got this far, just take your time. If you need a break, have a break, but just, finish it. So for me, people say that people are either finishers or they just leave things. I think I'm one of those people who is a finisher. I like to finish things that I start.
Amazing. Yeah. That's really kind of inspiring. I've had the honor to meet your husband as well at some point. And it seems like, he really kind of supported you along the way. Would you be able to kind of give an example in terms of what kind of support that kind of left an impact on your journey?
I think, we were both quite young when, we got married. He's about 8-9 years older than me. I never know, because he's from Bangladesh. We never know what the real age is. So, I think, his mother is somebody who said that, I want all my daughter-in-laws to have an education and be supported. So not only her daughter, she had 4 daughters, and then obviously she had the daughter-in-laws, about 3 of us at that time. But she was very much that, make sure that you give your wife the support to get educated. And I think that sort of, really helped him as well, because he saw around him women who were educated and, go-getters, even if they're married and whatever. So in that sense, it's a frame of mind, I think, to some extent, that how you perceive things. You're not perceiving, oh, my wife is, she's married, she's got to stay at home with the kids and that's it. But at the same time, for both of us, we feel that the family unit is the most important unit in society. And, if you can keep the family unit together and secure and supportive and nurture it, then, your children will flourish, society will flourish. It's when you don't support that we see, you can see the degradation in society today, because of so much, breakdown. Even in our communities, you're seeing more and more breakdowns of marriages. And, so I think it's very much about frame of mind. It's about understanding. Sometimes I felt that my husband didn't understand. So, I'd come back from uni and then, he'd have invited all these, brothers around for dinner, and I'd be like cooking and stuff. So, sometimes it was, so it's about compromise, getting to understand each other, building a team together. I think that's something that's quite crucial.
That's. Do you think being educated does play a part in terms of having that understanding and that frame of mind, or, what we call in our culture broad-minded people? Does that play a part, or it does? It's not significant.
To be honest, I'm going to be 60 next year, so
No way.
Yes, I
no
think
way.
I can say that.
MashaAllah.
I'm an elder now. So to be honest, what I found is also there are people who are educated who are very narrow-minded and small-minded, and there are people who haven't got an education, but because they have the Islamic adab and the etiquette, and they've been brought up, to understand Islam, their hearts are so big and so wonderful. So I think you can't really, judge people on their education. It's just on their actions. How do they treat you? So many times I've been in places where, I've been disrespected, ignored. People don't know who I am, whatever, it doesn't matter. But for me, what's significant is it doesn't matter who you are. You have to just treat everyone with due respect and give them, your time properly,
Fantastic. Now, mashallah, you're a mother of 6. You said you juggled between university and education, and I guess you mentioned you were also cooking well.
I'm not a very good cook though.
I'm sure Dr. Saif, right, is gonna say otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
How did Global One come about, and why did it need to come about? Like, what was the reason? What was the need for another kind of organization to come into the picture?
Yep. So I think for him and I obviously I have a legal background. My PhD was international environmental law, and my husband had a finance background, and he was working in a local government and doing very well there. But I think for us, the significant part was our connection with the masjid. So, from the time I got married to him, we were both active in whichever masjid. At that time, I think the local one was in Tottenham, which is now called the Aisha mm-hmm. Mosque. But, having that connection and making sure that the children are also, connected to the mosque is very important. So for us, 9/11 was the turning point. Because when 9/11 hit, we knew that there's going to be a lot of Islamophobia, a very negative position for Muslims. And we were thinking, how can we flip it? How can we, look at it with the glass half full? And what we felt was the most important thing was looking at the shared values of different faith communities. How can we bring, see what are the shared values between Christians and Muslims and Hindus and Jews, so in that sense. So that's when Faith Regen came about, which was a local, a national UK charity. And then we both, got involved in that, and, that's still running, alhamdulillah, till today. And at the moment, I think it's focusing more on domestic violence and women. But so I decided to leave Faith Regen, and what I was doing was consultancy. But what I saw was there was a gap, in terms of any INGOs, international organizations that were focusing on women. Because if you look at the Muslim charity sector, international charity sector particularly, it's very heavily, the leadership is very heavily male dominated, and, it's men who are calling the shots. And yet in the vulnerable communities, in the refugee camps, etc., the women are the ones that are having to deal with their children and, things like that. So that's why I felt, it was very important to have Global One set up to really focus on women. And at the same time, I was able to bring my expertise from the environmental perspective and, sort of look at that and see how we can look at sustainable projects which are, tackling environmental issues.
Amazing. So what difference have you guys made, and where are those differences in terms of countries?
Yeah. So at the moment, we're registered and have operations in 7 countries, in Africa, in Kenya, Nigeria, Ethiopia, Somalia, and in Bangladesh, Jordan, and Sri Lanka. Those are where our operations are. And obviously also in UK, when COVID hit, we were doing food pack distributions to the local communities and things like that. But I think the main, we're a very small charity, because we did try doing community fundraising. That didn't work very well for us. But the main thing, I think, is the 3 levels that we work at, which is intervention on the ground. So, distribution, delivery, implementing projects, resources. So we produce resources. So we produced a book on Islamic farming. We've done one on menstrual hygiene management and Islam, and then the Green Guide to the Hajj and Umrah, which was launched in 2021, the 2nd version. So, those are sort of resources that we do. And then at the top level, it's policy, advocacy, so I sit on a number of different steering committees with the United Nations, with the World Bank, also in the UK, Barnet Multi-Faith Forum. I'm also a trustee of Palmer's Green Mosque. So, having those opportunities to support strategically, I think because of all these things, Global One hits way above its belt, basically, because even though we may be small, we're able to, our voice is, going out much further.
Amazing. You mentioned kind of you sit on the board of mosques as well. How does that kind of work? Because it's quite uncommon in I guess, I haven't seen kind of any, I guess, female leadership in mosques or organizations such as mosques.
And it's quite sad because I think, women are perhaps much more active in the masjids in terms of, activities in the community, whether it's the Eid fairs, whether it's, supporting other, families, etc. When we were, as I mentioned, when we were doing the food distribution and stuff, it was the women who were coming much more than the men to support and help in, hands-on activities. So, Palmer's Green Mosque, alhamdulillah, it's a beautiful masjid. We have solar panels for the electricity, and it's very well organized and run. And I have a lot of love, particularly for the brother Sabir and brother Talat, who were the sort of 2 brothers who initiated it and have built it from scratch with the support of the community. So we have something called the Sister Squad now, that we're sort of trying to get more women volunteering, and through that we want to get new fresh blood to come and not only join but take the leadership roles as well, because I think that's something that's significant and important, that you need to prepare the next generations and have emerging leaders to really come and build up. I mean, that's why I myself personally ensure that I take any of my children with me on my travels, because they need to have those experiences and listen, because there's a lot that you'll pick up and the nuances and everything that you unless you have that lived experience, you won't understand.
Amazing. So the Sister Squad, I mean, obviously you want to I guess develop the next generation of leaders from a female perspective
as well. Yeah.
But what do you think the brothers' views might be, and do you care about their views? Because some brothers might think, oh, actually this is not what I want, this is not what I was kind of envisioning my household to be. I mean, how do you kind of balance it?
I think what it is we need more role models. So, this opportunity that you're giving me to be on this podcast, it's going to, send out messages to other women that, you can achieve and you can do within the framework of Islam. So, I'm grateful for this opportunity. And I think, what the brothers need to understand is that they're in the 21st century now. And, we are living within the bounds of Islam. And we need to be role models in not only for our own community, but for the society at large. Because, partly why we're having more and more Islamophobia is because we are othered. We're not, people aren't getting to know us. So getting to know your neighbors, getting, involved with them, being active in whether it's in the school PTAs or, tennis clubs or whatever, just, having that interaction and being involved is really important. And, women are doing all of that. So why not in the masjid? Why not in a leadership position in the masjid? Because women volunteer at the masjids all the time, but why are they not given those positions? Are the men fearful of, how brilliant women are? What is it?
Yeah, that's a question that I have in my mind. And I was hoping you would kind of, put some perspective into this, why is it the way it is? Is it one of those, I guess, political thing, or is it just kind of a view that has been passed on from generations to generation?
Yeah, I think a lot of our masjids are from the Indian subcontinent, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh. And if you notice, the mosques there, women aren't even allowed. I mean, after I got married, I remember we were traveling down to Chittagong, because I'm from Dhaka, my husband's from Chittagong. We were traveling down to Chittagong, and when it was namaz time, the men were getting out of the car to go and pray. So I was getting out, so where do I go? And they're like, get back in the car. This is a men's mosque, you can't. So what? So should I just put my janamaz on the street and just pray there? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So these are the things that cultural baggage that we're carrying, and we need to start moving away from. But at the same time, when you have youngsters coming up and giving us all these, sort of guidance from an Islamic perspective, where they're ignoring the elders, that's also another difficulty that I see.
Yeah, I was going to say, sometimes taking away all the baggages, could it present another challenge where they don't really care about any values or any kind of cultural traditions anymore?
Yeah.
So I personally feel that could potentially be also a risk, but I guess we need to kind of balance it out between both. Because, as you say, we are living in a very kind of developed world, and things are changing so fast. It's madness. Mm-hmm. So you seem to kind of have a very strong Islamic kind of value. Mm-hmm. Where did that come from?
I think when I was growing up, my father instilled in me the love for Allah and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And my parents came from my father's family came from more of a Sufi sort of background. And then when I married my husband, he was able to show me Islam as a way of life. So, combining the two is, I think, is a beautiful way of moving forward.
How did he manage to do that? Because from what I see, obviously you are a very intelligent person, and obviously I think for someone to communicate with you, it has to be on an intellectual basis. Was that the kind of approach that he took to kind of communicate certain ideas to you?
Well, I read books about Islam, and I think, again, as I said, the lived experience. So I went and attended some Islamic events. At that time, university students were doing things. I remember going to one in Derbyshire and attending that and seeing that people like me who had been brought up in the UK were there, and they were also learning about Islam and interested. And, it wasn't just the ritualistic side, because with your parents, they tell you namaz, boro, go and do the fasting and things like that. But there, you saw a bigger, Islam from an ummah perspective, that we're part of something much bigger than us, and we have something valuable to contribute to the global society as well. And that sort of sense of, being part of something so great and so wonderful, and having people, talk to you with respect, and talk about even the littlest things. It was just from that slowly. I remember when I started doing hijab, I was probably one of the few who were doing hijab at my school, because I was at school doing my A-levels, probably the only one in my whole school. And then when I went to university, so even the aunties and others were asking me, oh, have you shaved your hair off? Or have you done Hajj? all this sort of very, very stupid questioning, But that's because in those days, if you saw a Muslim, whether it's a hijabi or, a Muslim brother or whatever, you got so excited because it was so rare, Nowadays, I'll have someone sitting next to me and my children will say to me, why do you keep talking to them? I go, because I get so excited. I just like, Assalamu alaikum, how are you? Where are you from? Because that's just how I am, because it is exciting to meet, Muslims, I guess. But yeah.
So you wore hijab at your own accord. I mean, what were your kind of... Did you research into it, why you should wear it, or it's just one of those things that you kind of knew that you had to do at some point? And
no, I didn't know. As I said, I didn't know, because what happened is in Bangladesh, the youngsters that were growing up, so whether it was my brothers and sisters spent more time in Bangladesh than I did, so they came over later, and so they had the impression was very negative about the Maulanas and the Imams and stuff, because all they kept doing was, targeting women, saying, oh, women wearing lipstick, women, wearing this and that. So they, instead of encouraging and through love, teaching Islam, they were doing it in a very, you're going to go to hell and blah, 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 that sort of attitude. Whereas me, I didn't have any of that baggage, For me, it was like, oh, I have to do hijab. Okay, I'll do it. It's fine, because I'm not doing it for me. I'm not doing it for my husband. I'm not doing it for anyone. I'm doing it because that's what Allah has, asked me to do. And I need to have barriers between myself and other men. And, this is the way, as a Muslim, I should dress.
So obviously you attend many meetings, events, and quite high profile ones as well.
Yeah.
Do you think hijab kind of adds to your kind of personality, or is it something that kind of, can it sometimes put you aside because you're kind of different?
I have to say that, at the level I'm at now, it's much easier. But in the past, it has been very difficult, because you have been sidelined or ignored. People thought I couldn't speak English, they're looking for Dr. Ahmad, and I'm sitting there, and, these sort of ridiculous things. But I think you just have to be vocal and say what you need to say, because sometimes people think you're just, and I have had this where people have used me as a tick box, and I refuse to be a tick box. if I'm going to go somewhere, I will make sure I understand what the topic is and understand it and be able to contribute. If I can't contribute, then I won't attend. It's not my, place to be there. So I think, that's something that people have understood, and that's why I get called back for, different invitations and different things to attend to. And also I think the other thing is that to understand that, we shouldn't, when we're asked to do things, we shouldn't just have our own agenda. We should be looking at what are the requirements of the people that have asked you to, be part of us, whether it's a steering committee or something like that, and see how you can best help and move that forward. Because unfortunately, what I see is that a lot of people want to be on a trustee or this or that because they have their own agenda. And I think that's what you need to leave at the door. When you come in, you're focusing on that organization or that platform or whatever, and see what the best you can do for them, not for yourself. So I think that's one lesson I've learned.
It's very interesting we're talking about hijab, because only last night I was researching into why do women actually have to wear hijab. I mean, I understand it's a command from Allah directly, but is there a why? And if you were to kind of tell someone who's not wearing a hijab, or maybe who's just wearing hijab for the sake of wearing hijab because they've been told to, how would you then explain to them, no, it's not just because you were told to, there's more to it? And what are those things?
I think from my perspective, what you need to understand, that hijab isn't just about covering your hair, it's your aura, obviously, but it's also about your heart, so you're maintaining a distance, your eyes are lowered, and it's not only women, it's also men have to lower their gaze and everything. But, by doing hijab, I'm removing any sort of reason for someone to be lustful, to be, thinking in a different way, etc., etc., etc. So, and also yourself, you're going into something, knowing that it's not, there's no sexual or any, that sort of ideas, giving an opportunity for that because of the way you're dressed. You're covering your aura, and the aura is the things which can be attractive, etc. And it's difficult in this society because in the environment that we live, obviously we're living in a non-Muslim country where the society, hijab and things like that, they might laugh at it and think, this is ridiculous or whatever. But for us, it's something that we're doing because we've been commanded by Allah, and we've got the examples of from the Rasulullah and his seerah, and it's a protection. I feel that it's a protection for me, and a protection for others around me as well. So in that sense, I think it's very important.
I think same goes for brothers as well, right?
Yes.
So every time, I guess, when I wear Islamic clothes, I'm extra careful in terms of my conduct. Not that I'm not careful, but when you're kind of wearing certain types of clothes, you need to make sure that you are kind of completely straight and on the narrow. So I think it's that on that point, it definitely makes sense for men as well to kind of maintain their hijab as well, because
I think one thing that is beautiful about Islam is that it's not about hijab in terms of the Saudi way or the Gulf way, that you have to wear the abaya or whatever. Today I'm wearing a shalwar kameez, it's that's what's beautiful about Islam, that it doesn't matter where Islam went to, whether it went to Indonesia or Malaysia, Bangladesh, wherever, the local communities took the hijab, the framework, and made it their own. So in Bangladesh, they wear saris, but they'll wear, they'll do their podda properly. In, Pakistan, the shalwar kameez, and all this, way, which is beautiful. And so the girls in Britain today, they're finding their own way of hijab. They call it the modest clothing. This industry is huge now. And the halal economy is huge. So, this is wonderful that women are able to make it their own, and their, make their own culture.
Absolutely. So a lot of people say we're living in a modern society, and we're living in a English country, and there's certain things I guess they suggest in such a way, like as if it's okay to compromise on certain things. How do you kind of view that? It could be a cultural compromise, it could be a potentially even a religious compromise. What's your view? Because I feel like you do have a kind of a strong kind of standing on where you stand. And
so I think for me, what's important to note is that, as I said at the beginning, I've been here from the age of 4. So I've lived here the majority of my life. Yeah. So this is my country. I'm British, Bangladeshi, Muslim, woman. So what is it that I'm going to compromise on? I've made sure that, every aspect of my life, I'm trying to live it, and I make mistakes, obviously, and, I feel that, I'm not as religious as I should be, etc., etc. But I try to maintain, a Muslim way of life within the environment that I'm in, knowing full well that there are so many temptations outside, and living in Britain. I mean, there's so many British laws that have come out which are not in line with my thinking, etc. So I just try my best, and that's all you can do. You can try your best to be living, because I think sometimes I feel that I have more opportunities to live as a Muslim in this country than I would in Bangladesh or other countries, So, in that sense, we're very, very blessed and very, very lucky. Look what's happening in France, and then in Sweden and Denmark, all these sort of places. So, alhamdulillah, I think we're very, very blessed, and we need to appreciate that, we're in a country where we're able to freely, go to our masjids, freely, even have the adhan heard from so many masjids. I think you did the adhan on some bridge or something.
So it was Canary Wharf first, and then Tower Bridge.
That was amazing. Yeah. We're so proud of you for doing that.
Thank you.
So where would you have that chance in France?
No,
you tell me.
Definitely not.
Yeah. So I think we shouldn't say that. Oh, we're going to go back home, because in the past, generations before me, they had their foot in 2 boats. They're going to stay here. They're going to go back. Blah blah blah. But we need to embrace the fact that we're here, and we're part and parcel of this culture, and see how we can contribute to make British society more beautiful. The values that we add are wonderful values. Peace, tolerance, support for the neighbours and the communities, help the vulnerable. The charitable giving that we give is enormous. So there's so many good qualities that we as Muslims add to this society. So,
there's nothing to compromise. There's only to give.
We've got so much to give, yeah.
Absolutely. So, in your opinion, what is the purpose of life, and how does your understanding shape the way you live?
I think, goodness, you said you weren't going to ask me any difficult questions. I think the purpose of my life is to try and be the best that I can be, in terms of my family, my community, the nation, and whatever contribution I can make for the ummah. I think that's my purpose in life. I think we're on this journey, and what's most important is the journey, not for us as Muslims, obviously the end outcome is that we want to go to Jannat. But I think, the journey and how we behave on this journey, our attitudes, even when we're under the most extreme stress, how we behave with our brothers and sisters, how we acknowledge people, how we're kind to people, and not ignoring others. I think those things are really important. How we teach our children and our grandchildren, the good, of society. These are things that are important, and our purpose in life is very simple: to worship and praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to follow the guidance of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Hey guys, if you guys have been enjoying this show so far, don't forget to subscribe and comment below with any comments that you may have and any questions that you may have or any guest suggestions that you may have for our next episode. Without any further ado, let's get back into the show. So, what legacy do you think or do you envision kind of leaving behind you? And do you ever contemplate, okay, this is what I want to be remembered by? What would that legacy be?
I think one of the legacies, if we're looking at my the charity that I'm running, Global One, one of the legacies is to be able to leave it in a condition where other women are able to take it and help other vulnerable women throughout the world, and to support the advocacy of women, so that they have faith-sensitive products and faith-sensitive attitudes and are given dignity. So that's for Global One. For myself personally, I think my legacy is my children and my grandchildren, and just trying to keep them on the straight and narrow, and making sure that they're doing what they can, for the community, not only the Muslim community but the wider community, and for society in general. For them to be role models as well, to support and uplift the vulnerable, and for them not to forget, who they are. And one thing that I always say to my children is, number one, you're beautiful and you're brilliant, but also I say, please, the two things that I hate the most are people who lie and arrogance. These two I just can't tolerate. So if we can take arrogance out of the equation, we can remain grounded. It doesn't matter where we are. I mean, yourself, you're in such a fantastic space and everything, but the humility that you show is what I'm sure your children will know you for, and your families will know you for, and I'm sure with your brothers as well, So if we can have that, if we can teach our children to be humble and grounded and say whatever has come, whatever good has come is from Allah. It's not, oh, I'm so great and so brilliant, and that's why it's come. But at the same time, the reason I say you're brilliant and beautiful is because I want them to have that courage and that sense of, value about themselves. Because what I'm learning more and more recently is about self-care. And I think self-care is something that we don't do. I know definitely I've not done.
Yeah.
I don't know about yourself, but I think self-care is, particularly for women, is very, very vital. Because my acupuncturist had told me many years ago that you're like a bank, and you're always just giving, and then you run out. So you have to recharge. You have to make sure that you're in a position of health, and mentally, emotionally, and physically and spiritually, you're in a good space, so that you can give for your children, your grandchildren, your brothers and sisters, and others. If you're not, then you can't. So I think my thing, advice to other sisters would be that make sure that you have that self-care, to your wife, to your sister-in-laws, whatever, I think that's very important.
No, definitely. I think self-care is so important, and I think for men as well, because men are so busy trying to fend for the family, fight for the family, get the income home, and I think
food on the table,
and they often kind of, I think, I'm not sure about all the men, but I know like a lot of men, they kind of put themselves aside. At least I do, for sure. We're too busy, making sure things are right, and you kind of put yourself to a side. But recently, I think just after pandemic or throughout pandemic, I realized actually, no, if I can't be in a strong state of mind, good state of mind, strong, good physique, then I'll fall ill very soon, and I won't be able to do what I want to do. So I started my fitness kind of routine, and I don't know, I think we met before lockdown, and you must have seen me have a lot more weight. So alhamdulillah, that was good. And yes, taking time out for ourselves is super important. And I think, when you're flying and the emergency or the announcement says, take care of yourself, put your mask on first before you help others. And I think same concept can apply in self-care.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously, you're very. I'm not asking for relationship advice or anything of that nature, because obviously someone has to be professionally qualified for that.
Yeah.
From your own experience, what is required to build a beautiful family with a good foundation?
I think recognizing that you will make mistakes. People will make mistakes. People will have arguments. People will have differences of opinion. But the main thing is to have respect for each other and to be able to come to a compromise. As I said, at the beginning, that it's about teamwork. So I think, you need to understand that you and your husband, you're a team. And, with your children, you're doing things as a team to, build and nurture these children so that they have both Islamic understanding, they have the education, the social skills. Because I think nowadays a lot of these children, they'll be on their phones or their iPads, whatever, and they'll ignore, when people come over, they'll ignore them, whatever. So I think that's important, teaching them etiquettes, good adab, how to greet and meet and, serve people who, guests when they come to your house and stuff like that. I think that's very, very important. So I think, that's part of it. And then when you do come through stumbling blocks, don't just make rash decisions. Because, as I said, I've been married, this year will be 43 years.
MashaAllah.
And we've had our fair share of, issues and problems as well. But we didn't make rash decisions. So if you don't make a rash decision and you take your time to, consult with elders, consult with people that you trust, and then come to decisions, then, hopefully things will, be fine. But obviously you do have, I've got family members who are divorced, have been divorced. So, if people can't keep to the Quran and Sunnah, they'll have to, part ways, and that's fine. But, what I've seen more and more is, as children become older, they become more busy, they're working, they don't have time. So finding out, even if it's once a year, a time when the whole family can come together, whether it's, going on a holiday or booking a cottage in the UK or something like that, for them just to come and be together. I think that's really important. And then normally, on weekends, having time for each other, whether it's a breakfast together or going for a walk together, whatever, making sure you make time for your family. You're making time for your exercise and making time for your family, where you're not, people, you put the phones away and then you just, have that time to talk. It could be jokes, it could just be very mundane things that you're talking about, but it's that quality time that's most important. And especially children, they remember, they have the memories of, I went with my dad here and this happened or whatever. And you don't realize how you as a father or you as a mother, how significant your every word is to your children, or your action is to your children. You need to remember that. Because you don't think, they're 3 years old, 4 years old, they're not going to remember. They remember everything. So
they're on the kind of scanning mode those years. They're literally soaking in whatever bad or good that you're kind of saying. And I see that in my son, my daughter, they remember things that I don't even remember. I was like, when did I say that?
Yeah. So you need to be very mindful of that, I think. Yeah.
So where is the compromise though? Like, okay, so there's a narrative, do it for the kids. Just hang in there for the kids. Hang in there for the kids. And I hear that a lot.
Yeah.
Where is that balance? Where do you say, it's self-care versus, I guess, the kids? Or do you say, no matter what happens, the kids need to get to a certain age and then we'll kind of see where things go? Where is that balance?
I think it's everyone has their own call, because everyone's case is different, isn't it? So if there is a situation where people are struggling and they get to a moment where they just can't take it. I think number one, if there's domestic violence, completely cut, finished. The domestic violence is zero tolerance. You cannot have any tolerance for domestic violence. But if it's other issues that can be managed, then you can look at that. I mean, taking of second wives and things like that. Those are issues that,
Trigger a lot of
in our community. So it's up to the woman whether she decides to remain in the marriage or she decides to leave, and it's her call. And as I said, everyone has their own opinion and decision, and we have to respect them for whatever they want to do and how they want to move forward. And I think with people who have children and they can't take it anymore, and they get to a point where they need to leave. If they feel that it's a time to leave, their thoughts should be on how they feel, because if they're going to be bitter in that relationship, that also will impact the children, because the children will just see parents who are bickering all the time, who are negative all the time, pessimistic, and the children will grow up thinking, oh, I don't want to get married because this is what it's going to end up in, So you have to make sure that, for me, I think one of the things that I've always taught my children, and my husband's also taught our children, is that, we respect each other. He respects me and I respect him. He calls me mule sometimes, but I'll accept that, because I'm very stubborn. But, that the children know that, mummy and Baba will argue and stuff, but we still respect each other, and then we'll come to decisions together. And we also have the youngsters, all the children coming together to make decisions as well. If there's something important, we will consult, that shura sort of style.
Yeah.
Because I think even, the youngest one, like my 18-year-old, he has a perspective which maybe we haven't thought about. So it's important to have that, discussion on, like at the moment we were thinking whether we do a loft conversion or not. So, we've been out in, talking to the children that shall we go for it? Because now the children are growing up, leaving the house. So what's the use of having a loft conversion? Something simple like that, but obviously there's much bigger issues that have been discussed as well. But, I think it's important to be open, trust your children, trust each other to be able to talk about issues which may be difficult, and to be truthful. I think being truthful is important, because if you keep, for instance, if the woman keeps accepting, everything that's thrown at her, she will become very negative about it. And it's also, people end up with arthritis and, health issues as well, because they're internalizing their anger or their, disappointment at things.
Well, do you ever explain to your children, if you ever had an argument or something, like why you had an argument with your husband or something? Or do you feel like it's not necessary? Because I feel like sometimes if I have an argument, I feel like the children are definitely questioning, like, why is this happening?
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes I end up explaining, like, why it happened and why Abu got angry or why Ammu got angry.
I like that. I like that you explain, because I think it's nice for them to understand different perspectives and, understand why, parents have had an argument. But yeah, I don't know. I can't remember whether, obviously every time we wouldn't be explaining to the kids.
Yeah.
And, and now my children range over a 30-year span. So my eldest is 40, my youngest is 18. So, the older ones have the children and the younger ones are still at home. So they're all, the older ones are now like the ones who are the bosses of us and come and tell both me and the dad off, like, why did you do this? So it's that sort of flip in terms of the relationship when they're.
Is it nice sometimes, like where you kind of see, wow, like, these are kind of fruits of our labor, our hard work, and now they're taking a leadership approach as opposed to us continuously kind of leading them.
It is lovely. Yeah, it's really lovely. Sometimes, to be honest, it's really annoying because I'm like, oh, for God's sake, I'm the mother. I went carried you for 9 months and now you're telling me what to do. So we have that, but yeah, I think it's it's wonderful, and it's nice to see them, and they make their mistakes, and I have arguments with them as well all the time. So I'm all, like the younger ones, I'm always shouting at them as well. But this is, you have to be honest, and yeah.
Have you learned anything from your children?
A lot. I learn things all the time. I mean, they teach me, especially technology.
Yeah.
So that's really helpful. And sometimes I know more about something than them, which is nice to show off to them. I think that the thing to learn from their perspectives is sometimes you have an opinion about something and you keep keep it in you, and you don't want to shift. So when they come and say to you, sometimes you need to forgive and forget, and you need to move on about something, or you shouldn't have this opinion. This is another perspective that you should consider. So having that differences of opinions and is really helpful, because then you'll see things in a different perspective. So you have to have an open mind, to be able to accept it. A lot of the time I'll be like, okay, I hear what you're saying, but I disagree with you still. So as I said, I'm quite stubborn sometimes, but it's good because then it does give you food for thought, and you will mull over things and think, oh, actually, this may be a better way of dealing with something.
Yeah. You mentioned something just a little while ago, forgive and forget. And this is something that I guess in family setting, in your children's setting is quite different. But in a wider setting, there's quotes everywhere: forgive, forget, and move on.
Mm-hmm.
But where do you kind of stop forgetting and start holding people to some accountability as well? Because I suppose if someone stole your house, you can't really forgive them.
No.
So
I think it depends on the gravity of the situation, number one. Number two, I think where forgive and forget is concerned, with me, I will forgive, but I struggle to forget, because I know that often if I've forgiven and say for instance in the employment setting, someone's done something, I've forgiven them, and then I've been requested to bring them back in, and I have brought them back in, and they've made the same mistake again. So I'm like, the first time, they did this to me. Now they've done it to me the second time as well. Why? So, I've become a lot more cautious. So, even if I can forgive, because by forgiving, you yourself are relinquishing that thing that you're holding inside about others. So it's making your heart freer. So I think that's a good thing, that you're forgiving. But, not necessarily that you just forget. You just are mindful of certain people or scenarios or situations, that you don't want to be in that again, because as you grow older, you have more experience, and you're in business, so very well that you've had your fingers burnt, say a few times, whatever. So you're not going to go back and do the same thing again, because that would just be stupid. So in the same way, with experiences, you need to learn from them and move on. And be able to pass that experience also onto your children, or onto your colleagues, or to others. And also to be able to see the bigger picture, because a lot of us, we have very siloed vision about stuff. So we just, deal with this small thing and that's it. But if you are able to, you've gone through the experience and you realize, hang on, I've been through these sort of experiences before, and I know it's not the end of the world. So let me have a bigger, look at it, broader perspective on it. Then you'll be a lot more calmer and less stressed.
Gotcha. What's that one advice that you've received in your life that really, really left a mark on you?
I have to say that my father, he passed away 21 years ago. But his advice and support, I think, has been second to none, I have to say. So he's always taught me to believe in myself. So I think that's because I have this issue of imposter syndrome, and I think it's something that's common not only in women but in men as well, where you think, oh, why am I here? What, even being here with you, why are you even listening to me?
Yeah, exactly.
I have nothing to say.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's, I guess, comes from humility as well. I guess a lot of humility, and you kind of start questioning your kind of own ability as well sometimes. Although you're kind of, mashallah, you're an O.B.E. I mean, I don't know how to refer to a female O.B.E. I know with the man, he says, is sir. I mean, what is it for females, by the way?
No, O.B.E. is just order. You just have it at the end of your name.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
But I've become a professor recently. I'm an associate professor at Birmingham.
Amazing.
I'm really excited about the work I'll be doing with Birmingham. And again, it's on leadership, particularly around Masters in Public Administration. So I'll come and have a chat with you about that as well.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So you were saying about your father, like him leaving a big impact on yourself. And
I think it is very much about self-belief and having the courage to do what you want to do, and not spending too much time worrying about stuff, because I find youngsters nowadays, they worry about everything. Oh my God, I can't do this, I can't do that, I'm not going to be able to succeed. All you can do is try. All you can do is try and see how far you can go. Reach for the stars and see how far you're a case in point. You're absolutely a case in point. You and your whole family, Allah bless you and all the efforts that you guys do. But I think, all you can do is reach for the stars. You try your best at everything and then see how far it goes. And don't give up, because I think, as I said, I'm a finisher. I won't give up. I'll try and finish things. So I think that's the piece of advice that I think has really helped me, that, even if you think you're not going to succeed and you're not going to be able to do it, just give it a try. You never know where it takes you.
Is there anything that you kind of now know you wished you knew kind of maybe 10 years ago? What would be that thing that you now know?
I should have been doing a lot more exercise. I've put on so much weight. I should be, the self-care, I think, is something that I really do believe that, because I've had some health issues, more recently. So I think, if I'd started the self-care even 20 years ago, it wouldn't have been, I wouldn't be in the position I'm in now. Stress is not worth it, because stress is a huge killer. So I think, that's something that we need to know, that sometimes if you need to walk away, you need to walk away. And sometimes I have stuck with things despite realizing that I shouldn't have. So, that's something as well.
Well, stress is a big one for sure. I guess anyone in leadership position, they would know, stress is kind of part and parcel, because in leadership, you try and make sure everything is going according to plan, and almost always there's something going wrong.
Yeah.
And you have to really more recently, I'm trying to manage what's coming into my mind and how much impact it will have, because one thing can ruin your whole day, and you're kind of done for the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
absolutely. Yeah.
I just wanted to kind of finish off by asking a few questions around leadership.
Yeah.
I mean, what makes a great leader?
I wouldn't know, because I'm not a great leader.
I'm sure you are. Yeah. I've been to your office, and mashallah, I've seen a lot of they look smart people. So and I'm sure you wouldn't pick anyone that doesn't serve the purpose.
I think leaders are those who lead by example, and I think they're also the people who listen to others, to their teams, and take their advice, and surround yourself with not just competent people, because a person can be competent but unethical or distrustful. You need to surround yourself with honest, good people. They may not be that brilliant or that competent sometimes, but it's better to surround yourself with good people and like good companions, and in every aspect of your life, than to surround yourself with people who are very, very competent but are unethical, or are going to stab you in the back, or something like that. So I think that's something. I think in leadership positions, listening, empathy, and kindness are the three key things from my perspective. I think if you're kind to others, people are more willing to learn from you, and build themselves up and give more of themselves to the job. And empathy, because everyone outside of your office environment, they have a life, they have issues, they may have personal issues, all sorts of things might be happening outside. You don't know what they're going through. So being empathetic to them, and being supportive of them, if they need time off, or they may be pregnant, or it could be all sorts of things. That I think is really important. And what was the first thing? Listening. Being able to listen, not just to your colleagues, but people that you're interacting with, and learning from everyone. So we still need to be in a mode of learning. Continuous learning is something that's vital for all of us. You don't just suddenly get to a stage in your life like, okay, I'm 40 now. I need, I'm wise. I don't need to learn anything else anymore. You need to be constantly, even until your grave, you need to be learning and implementing what you learn as well.
And that's Islamic I guess
exactly.
teaching is always in it,
Yeah.
you know, from the cradle to the grave, and
Yeah.
Islam has given so much importance to learning, and
Yeah.
it's quite sad to see, like, you know, I mean, a lot of people become scholars, but
Yeah.
they think they've become like they know it all.
Yeah.
But in my view, I suppose, and I'm nowhere near to kind of I can't make any comments about anyone,
Yeah.
because I myself, I need to learn a lot, and I learn every day. But in my view, when a university says you've passed at this mark, in my view, it's telling me like you are of a certain competency.
Yeah.
Now go and do your self-learning.
Yeah.
What we've taught you is kind of the foundations. Now you have to really start learning now. But what people think, I think, when they get that degree, like they become the learned,
Yeah.
and they don't need to learn anymore.
Yeah, yeah. One thing that I learned when I was doing my PhD is the more, because with a PhD you're looking at a very small topic, very, very, specific topic, and you're digging and digging and digging and digging to learn about that, and then come up with your thesis. Is that the more that you learn, the more you don't know, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So that's sort of very scary, because we sometimes when you're young and you're brazen, you think, oh, I know this, and you just go off and you teach the person one line, and you think, oh, that's it. But within that one line, how much how many PhDs or scholars have researched that one line or something, you have no idea.
Absolutely. And it's like when those speakers speak, I follow a lot of speakers, and how they speak, because I'm very keen on learning on how to become a better communicator and how to articulate myself better. And I see they can talk about a small thing and they can go on and on that same topic. I was like, wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's really kind of impressive. I just wanted to kind of end by saying, thank you very much. I personally feel like I've learned a lot from yourself even today, and I guess that's the purpose. One of my deep motivations of this podcast is to kind of learn myself and see through learning if I can share the kind of knowledge and experience of the guests with others. So I really appreciate your time, and I hope I will continue to learn from you, and most likely I will probably be in touch with you to kind of to ask a lot more questions. And I hope,
it's been my great pleasure and honor to be here with you, and I love the setup.
Thank you so much.
So
thank you
so much for inviting me.
Thank you. Jazakallah.